Hey everybody, haven't done this since COVID. It feels weird. It feels weird. Welcome to our online async class. Welcome to the insanity, which is my office at home. This is recently cleaned up and organized. I won't even show you the rest of it. So I'm gonna try to make this as clean as possible. I'm gonna try to keep it as concise as possible. I guess the one downside to doing this online, or maybe it's the upside, is that there's a lot of information. So I'm just gonna be throwing a lot of stuff at you. This is kind of the nature of expressions. There's so much to cover there, and really the only way to learn it is to start doing it. So my goal is, or my thought is, oh, I don't like this window over here. Let's move that. My goal is to kind of just give you the onslaught of information, knowing that only a part of it's going to stick. We'll come back. I guess I'm really talking through the agenda here, aren't I? It's just over here to the side. I don't know where it is for you guys. um, uh, I'm going to throw a ton of stuff at you guys. Some of it's going to stick, some of it's going to not, and then we're going to go and start trying stuff out. I'm going to keep kind of reinforcing and reminding you of how things need to work with the face. We'll make some mistakes, we'll clean stuff up, and we'll slowly kind of get to a place where we understand how the face works. That's the plan. In terms of the agenda, how we're going to be doing it is we're going to finish up with the blinks. We didn't get to that last week. I'm going to talk about just facial movement in general. And then we're going to watch some examples of how all these parts work together, start to get a sense of what they do. I'll point some things out. We'll do a in-class exercise together to sort of get you a sense of how to kind of go about this. And then I'll go over the assignment and how you should go about that. Hopefully by the time we get to the end part, aside from just being exhausted, you will have a much better handle on how to approach doing expressions. So, which you'll definitely need for the final. Let's jump into it. All right, so let's start off with blinks, or let's finish up with blinks, I guess. I'm going to go ahead and leave me on screen. Just because we're doing expressions, I expect that I'm going to have to, at some point, show you stuff with my face. I guess we'll see. So hopefully this is helpful, not distracting, but that's what it is. So here we go. Blinks are an important part of everything we do with expressions. As we talked about a little bit last week, a character who's not blinking is going to seem immediately dead. We'll talk a little bit more later about when to blink and how often to blink, how fast. Well, I guess we're talking about how fast to blink right now. But I just want to kind of cover the basics of blinking. It doesn't seem like it should be that big of a deal, but actually there's some subtleties to it, and you can definitely overdo it, underdo it, or just do it wrong. So let's at least talk about kind of a reference point for how to think about blinks. Here we go. Oh, look at that. I've already said a bunch of these things. So when do we use blinks? Well, one, they convey life. Again, just because we already covered that. I'm going to skip it. We know you have to blink to be alive. Everybody does it. Everything does it. So it happens during different times. It happens during big head movements. If you're looking from one place to the next, you often will blink on your way there. I'm not sure why. It's just something that we do. You don't have to do it. Sometimes if you don't want to, if it doesn't work for the performance, then don't. But sometimes it just feels like a nice kind of reset. We also have to do it once in a while just to wet our eyes. Otherwise our eyes get really dry and they feel bad. I mean, they shrivel up. I don't know what happens, but we have to do it anyway. So as you start to kind of pay attention to what people do or start paying attention to them blinking, it starts to be kind of weird. Like it's something we kind of ignore until you start paying attention to it and then you realize like everyone around you is blinking and it's kind of freaky. Usually when I do this in class, like it starts to freak me out that all you guys are staring at me and blinking. So start to look for it and start to feel it. You'll sort of get kind of that sense of the pattern of it. It most often occurs in dusty, it occurs more often in dusty or windy atmosphere just to protect our eyes too. So it's also a protection mechanism, of course. So if your character is in an environment where it's going to be windy or dusty, you're going to have to blink a lot more. It can also give away or give a sense of the level of relaxation or intensity of the character or nervous nature. Some people just like stare and that can be really, really intense and kind of adds the flavor of something, or maybe adds the sense of terror. And some people can't stop blinking all the time and makes them feel very nervous, whether they are or not. It's just something we can use to play with. The basic blink is usually 6 frames from beginning to end. So the first frame being an open frame, last frame being an open frame where your eyes are in the previous position they were in. We usually have, you always need to have at least 2 frames closed in the middle, otherwise it reads as a flicker, not a blink. Sometimes you might want that, again, if your character is being more nervous or is in a dusty atmosphere, maybe a flicker is better, but a full blink needs 2 eyes closed. And then we have a mid position here in between the fully open and first closed position, and then a mid position here between closed and open again. Typically, a 6 frame blink will feel normal. A 7, 8 frame blink, same thing, it'll feel fine. As you get to above 8, it starts to feel kind of slow and lazy, or you're literally just closing your eyes and opening them up, or maybe you're doing a slow kind of change of direction of your eyes with a blink in the middle. For all of those, we tend to increase the number of closed frames as opposed to increase the number of closing frames, like number 2 and 5. We could add a couple more in there if we needed to for a slower blink, but it starts to feel really lazy and weird very quickly. So keep the 6 frame blink in mind and kind of use that as your base point as you experiment. The basic blink looks like this with the 6 frames. So again, fully open, partially closed, closed. You can do 2 frames closed. Just hold this as a still, or if you want, you could do an extra compression frame on there. Then partially open, and then open. So it looks like this. Oops. A couple things to notice here. One, sorry, it's hard to know where I am in the sequence. One thing you want to be careful of is the frame coming in here like this, the partially closed frame at the beginning. So we're looking at this one right here. You don't want the eyelid position to be the same here as it is here. If you look at this one's about halfway across the pupil, close, close, and on the way back open, it's almost back to neutral. The reason for this is that if you make them in exactly the same place, this is a fast enough move. Instead of getting a sense of movement of the eyes like we're getting here, it'll strobe and flicker instead. So you want to offset those just a little bit. A little bit goes a long way. The other thing you might have noticed here is the brows. Sorry, I keep doing that. It's probably sickening to watch. The brows are following the lids a little bit. Now in real life, this doesn't really happen. My brows pretty much stay locked where they are. Maybe there's a slight movement or twitching, but not much. With CG characters, it kind of helps to connect them. If I was doing if it was a hyper-realistic CG character, I wouldn't bother. If it's a more of a cartoony or abstracted, exaggerated character, that little bit of connection with the brows goes a long way to making this feel more naturalistic. It's just a funny thing. Some people like to do it. Some people hate to do it. It's up to you where you want to do it. But I would recommend adding a little bit. Now you don't want to have the brows come all the way down or all the way back up. You're just adding in wherever their position is at the start. You're just adding a little bit of movement up and down with the eyes, and you're good to go. You kind of get a sense of that. If you want to do a faster blink, that's totally fine. A 5 frame blink. In this case, let's go back to our previous picture. A 5 frame blink, we have the first frame and last frame where we're starting from, and we have the 2 closed frames that we can't change. We can extend them, but we can't take them away. We can't go down to 1. So a 5 frame blink would be removing number 2 or removing number 5 and just jumping straight to a closed eyes. Aardman Animations, who do Wallace and Gromit, love doing this. So here we go is the first one. So partially close, close, and then you just pop straight open. This looks like this. It's a little bit punchy on the end. The alternative would be closing fast at the beginning, which has a different kind of feel to it. After a while, you get a sense of, you get a sense of what feels right to you in the moment. A lot of you are probably thinking like, wow, really? I just don't care about this that much. That's okay. It's a fine place to start. As you get more and more in tune with expressions, you'll realize okay, this actually does change the flavor of it. It's a way to break things up, or it's a way to kind of create a different flair or add emphasis to a moment. But it takes a little bit of time before you get to that level of sensitivity. So if you're not feeling it yet, don't sweat it, but you will get there. Four frame blink is just straight close, straight open. This is actually more the Aardman style. They just will kind of close the eyes immediately and then open them back up. It works great. It's really fast, but it works great. This is about the fastest blink you can do, the four framer. As I mentioned with the brows, if you don't move the brows, it tends to feel kind of quiet, which could be nice. If you're having a more subtle moment, maybe the big brow movement would be kind of obnoxious. If you're really pushing this or exaggerating, that movement of the eyebrows just helps soften a little bit and again connects the muscles of the face and makes the character feel more alive. But it's a personal choice. So that's blinking. So the next thing we're talking about is facial movement itself. So far we've talked about what it means when you move the eyelid or when you move the eye or what that could express or what that could mean, but we haven't really talked about how to move them. The weird thing is about the face is it doesn't move, the parts of the face don't move like pretty much any other part of the body. They're kind of their own thing. They're a little bit weird, as we will discover shortly. So I want to talk about how they move. This is, again, a lot of information to throw at you guys. It'll best serve you once we're actually animating and you can kind of think about how to move things. And I'll cover this multiple times so you start to get a sense of, oh, this should go like this and this should go like this. So this is all about PowerPoints today since I can't be in front of you and can't draw. Not that I can draw anyway. But let's talk a little bit about movement. I apologize for the hideousness of this PowerPoint, but I wanted to do something with pink. So I guess here, I'm going to shrink this up a little bit so I can share the screen. Okay. We're just going to go through in the different parts one at a time, focusing on the eyes, eyelids, eyebrows, and the head. We're not going to talk about the mouth so much. We'll hit that a little bit later when we actually have a real mouth to use. So first of all, you're going to see at the beginning of each one of these a recommended speed, which is how fast to move something. X just means frames. So from 1 frame to 4 frames. We don't generally move things in 1 frame. That's essentially a step tangent. But eyes are the one thing that can do that and actually be legitimate. We don't typically do that. So average eye movement would probably be, this is probably actually a little bit low. I'd say probably the average would be closer to 3 to 5, but we can go as low as 1. So literally the eye can go from one side of the eye socket to the other in 1 frame. Typically, though, again, we're looking at it closer to 4 to 5 for normal speed. The important thing is they never float. We don't want them drifting across the eye socket. That always looks terrible and immediately makes your character look dead. The one exception would be is if they are following a very clear and specific target that the audience is aware of. If the eyes are just kind of slowly sliding across the face, it's going to look weird. Although typically, when we look at something in the distance, we follow it. We don't follow it with our eyes. Unless you're trying not to be noticed, you would actually follow it with your head and keep your eyes locked in place within the head. So keep that in mind as well. It's important, as we saw the other day, that if you can sell that the eyes, if you can make the eyes move correctly, make the eyes move believably, it's the first step to making an instant leap, huge leap forward to making your character feel like they're thinking. Again, they never float. They always move very quickly, and they lock onto that target and hold it until they move to something else. More nervous people will be doing this a lot, and more relaxed people will be doing this less. So back in our World of Boxhead, did I get this off a little bit? I did. I'm just going to adjust the position just a tad because I am crazy anal retentive, if you haven't noticed. So we're looking at move, stop, move, stop, move, stop. We also, with eyes, we do not get any ease in, ease out. You can do a little bit, but it's completely not necessary. And we don't do any follow through on pretty much any parts of I shouldn't say any parts of the face. We don't do follow through in the eyes. You just move, stop, move, stop, move, stop. The more jerky you are, the better it's going to feel. If you start to kind of slowly float around, your character's going to feel kind of lifeless and dead and not really believably thinking. So stop, lock, lock. It's one of the, you should be thankful. Ultimately, it's one thing you can animate less. Um, all right. In fact, I'm going to make a note on there. All right. Added to the PowerPoint, no follow through or ease in out necessary. Cool. Let's talk about the eyelids. The eyelids move a bit slower than the eyelids. They're still really fast compared to a lot of parts, the rest of the parts of the body. In general, we're looking at about like a 3 to 8 frame movement for the eyelids. We're not moving a huge distance, so you don't need to do anything super dramatic here. Note, I should say that these are all reference points. Can you go slower than 8 frames? Sure. Can you go faster than 3 frames? Maybe. But at some point, it's going to start to feel funky. So this is kind of a general range that you're looking at. 3 frames would be for a character that's much more energetic or enthused. 8 frames would be for a character that's much slower and more relaxed. You'll start to get a sense of this. But if you go really slow, it's going to start to feel really weird and disconnected. The eyelids don't have any follow through either. You don't need to like move to a position and then move back a little bit. There's no hard accents. You could do soft accents though. That being said, there is overlapping action, not from one eyelid to the next, so you can play with that. The overlapping action is with the eyes. So either the eyes are going to start the movement, followed by the lids, or the lids might start the movement, followed by the eyes. There's lots of play back and forth there that you can experiment with. So I guess I said this up here, but they do move quickly, slower than the eyes. I should reverse those. The upper lids, remember, follow the iris like we showed in class. So as the eyes move around, the whatever expression you currently have dialed in right here, those upper lids are going to follow the eyes automatically in Boxhead, not automatically in a lot of other characters, including Max or Maya. You have to do this yourself, which is, frankly, it's annoying. So it's great when you have a character that's set up like this. It helps maintain their expression, which we prefer. Blinks are mostly with the upper lid. I forgot to mention this when we were looking at blinks. In fact, let's pull that back up. Where are you, Blinky Blinky? So going back in here, if you watch the lids, it is partially the lower lids, but it's mostly the upper lid doing the work. What you don't want to have is, yes, by the time the eyes are closed, let me go back to the 6 framer. By the time the eyes are closed, the upper lids are technically covering the entire iris and pupil, but we never want to be in the position where we're just seeing like the lower iris or the whites of the eyes. That always looks really, really weird. We want to kind of snap to that closed position from an open position. So specifically what I mean, if I pull up good old Boxhead here, you don't want to have this sort of set up. I think I mentioned this in class the other day, where you're looking at just a little bit of iris below or literally none. That's going to feel really, really awkward for a blink. What you want to do is stop somewhere in here, kind of at the neutral halfway point with the lower lids coming in. Where are my lower lids? With the lower lids coming in, and then somewhere in here, you just go from this pose to a full closed with the eyes coming down. But we don't want to see it. It just looks really weird. All right. When eyelids move together, they either sometimes a lot of movement is just going to be the upper lids just doing their thing, following the lids or following the eyes. Though if you're going to actually narrow your eyes in to see something or open them really wide, in general that motion is those lids moving in unison. They're expanding out or coming in. What we want to avoid is them actually moving with the eyes in the same direction. It looks really weird. So let's pull Boxhead back up and check this out. So here, if Boxhead's having a conversation with someone and widens his eyes a little bit, we're going to expect this motion where the lids move together. In this control, it's kind of awkward, but it's a diagonal motion. I would never do it like this. I would just dial in the upper lids where I wanted and then dial in the lower lids where I wanted. But I want to make sure as they move that they're doing that expansion and contraction, expand and contract. What I don't want to see, if I go left and right on this one, is those lids sliding up and sliding down. This is a weird thing to see. It's like suddenly the eyes look kind of dead, locked, as if the lids are like a window that you're looking through. It's just very awkward. So this, not this. That being said, if you're going from like here to here because the eyes are going from here to here, that's okay. You can have the lids follow the eyes, but if they're stationary, we don't want to see this. That looks terrible. And it's not something we ever see, so as soon as we see it, we just don't know how to interpret it. So immediately you've lost your audience in that moment. All right, that's eyelids. Let's move to the next one. Eyebrows. Eyebrows in general, we're looking at like a 3-frame to 8-frame movement, just like the eyelids. There's a lot more playroom here, though. 3 frames would be pretty fast. 4 to 5 would be a little bit more normal. 8 also fine. We can even go up to like 9, 10, 11, somewhere in there. At some point, though, as you start to get slower and slower with the brows, they look really freaky, as I'll show you in a second. So you're better off leaning towards moving them more quickly than you are doing something slow. That being said, while they don't have follow-through, you could sometimes add it in there if it just feels right to you to add a little bit of kind of settling. What I would say, though, is, and I didn't put it in here, I don't know why. Oh, I did, at the bottom. They work really, really well with ease in and ease outs. So sometimes you're going to move really quickly to your target, but then spend some time just sort of stretching that motion up just a little bit, just for extra emphasis. And when you start doing that, you can add in extra frames without worry. It already feels that they're kind of locked into place. The one thing that's really weird about the brows is they tend to jump to targets a little bit more like the eyes. You wouldn't think it, but they do. So try this out. I'm going to tilt my hand up a little bit here so you can see better, and I'll make myself bigger, but you should try this yourself. So I want you to put your eyebrows up. Well, actually, let's start low. So put your eyes low, like your eyebrows low, and I want you, as slow as you can, I want you to slowly move them up. And what you're going to find is they don't move slowly really well. They want to kind of jump and slide into targets. Try it again. So just slowly raise your brows. You're going to feel that tugging, that jumping. And we want to emphasize that, or play with that, use that when we're actually animating the brows. The same thing on the way down, but it's not as strict. So if you go really high and slowly lower your brows, you're going to see they kind of want to jump down as well. They want to jump to those targets. But if you're really kind of just relaxing the muscles, you can let those eyebrows slowly sag. So it's not quite as strict on the down as it is on the up. In general, if you're not sure what to do, my recommendation would be spend more time jumping to targets, and they'll look a little bit more natural. And again, jumping doesn't mean step tangent. It means 3 to 8 frames of movement. So we're moving pretty quickly. And then we're locking. We'll talk more about that later. All right. Sorry. I got a sunbeam coming in from over here. It's lovely. Hopefully it's not just pouring snow outside. Does it pour snow? Dumping snow. Since I recorded this on Monday. So the last thing we want to talk about is the head. The head, not surprisingly, we've already played with the head plenty, moves like the rest of the body. Meaning it has normal follow-throughs, ease and ease outs, arcs, typical timing. You're not going to move things on one frame and then lock it down. So use all your previous knowledge of how the body moves to address the head. But we still need to address the head because it's important for selling expressions. The head can perform lots of dramatic and subtle gestures. The more you start watching people's heads and what they're doing while they're talking, it gets pretty interesting. Some people are really big head talkers, and some people are pretty subtle and stiff and quiet. Everything in between. So definitely something you want to start using. If you just want to do expressions with the face alone and you weren't using the head, your character's just going to feel not dead, but really restricted and nowhere near as interesting. And you're just giving up a lot of communication. So I actually encourage you to record yourself and to see what you do. Or watch some of your favorite actors for sure would be great. Even like that gesture, like what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? There's a million things you can do as you start to kind of watch head movements. There's lots of things you can play with. There's infinite things. So this is also why shooting reference is great for seeing what the head is doing as someone is talking. Some of the most common ones you're going to see are someone either talking towards their target or constantly looking away while they're talking to their target, maybe looking back once in a while. So that could be because they're being thoughtful, or maybe they're kind of a little defensive and they're a little bit unsure. Someone who stares you down is going to feel a lot more aggressive. They're going to feel a lot more in tune with you. They tend to feel more dominating that way. I probably don't feel like dominating right now because I'm sitting below the camera. So typically you'd also have the camera pointing up at someone to make them feel more dominating as well. But that eye contact is important. That's what predators do, right? Predators stare you down. Prey is usually looking for an escape. And defensive people or submissive people are looking away. So that's something you can kind of play with there. It could be even the same character in different moments in a performance where at some point they're feeling a little bit submissive or thoughtful, but then they're suddenly, coming up and feeling more dominant about parts of the performance where they're feeling more confident. Looking sideways, up at an angle is almost always feels like a question. Right? It just is something we do. Dogs do it. It's immediately hilarious. They turn their head sideways. You're like, oh, they're asking a question. If I was really good at doing this, I'd pull up a little YouTube video and show it really quick.
Right. What were you guys thinking? Were you thinking about playing? Huh? Did you want to play?
Yeah, no idea why dogs do that, but it's adorable. If you like dogs, which I do. So that works with people too. Huh? Are you sure? It doesn't seem to make sense. So that's a really common gesture we do. I already mentioned this a little bit, but chin down. If your chin is down, it's going to look a little bit more submissive. If, the person they're talking to is up there. But even if even if it's me and I'm taller than you and I'm looking down, it's going to feel more submissive too. And then chin up as you lift up your head. So, didn't do your homework, huh? It's going to feel a little more defiant or a little bit more like I'm putting myself in a position of power over you, looking down at you. If you go to an extreme, looking at someone down their nose is kind of a version of that, a power trip. This is a really common one in terms of gesture. This is more about positioning. But in terms of gesture, a lot of the common things we do is we tend to nod our heads or shake our heads when we're talking, kind of delivering either what we want to hear or what we are kind of emphasizing our feelings about what we're saying. So if I were to say, this is something you really need to do, it's important, I might nod my head as I'm saying it. Or if I was saying, I don't ever want to see you do that again, ever, ever. Lots of shaking. No, 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 no. Or yes, 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 yes. And sometimes people say the opposite message, right? It could be like, do you want to go out with me? I'd love to. I think that would be fun. I don't really mean it, right? Or it could be the opposite. Yeah, I don't know. Could be cool, right? I mean, maybe we were good together. So yeah, I think that. So you can play with either one, and it works a lot. You'll see people nod and shake a lot. You definitely want to think about arcs, which is a little bit harder to do with box head, but we're thinking usually in moving in more arc forms as opposed to like perfectly linear. You can do that if you start doing it with Max or Maya. The character feels really dead really quickly. So picture your character moving up in arcs, down in arcs, to the side in arcs. Everything will feel a lot more fluid, a lot more natural. The last thing is also just plain old head bobbing. People sometimes just kind of, can't say nonsensically, but people, I know now you're watching my head, right? Nod and shake, nod and shake. Sometimes when people talk, they just, bounce their head in time to what they're saying. Quick story about this. I was working on, it's probably like my second or third month in working on the PJs stop motion show with Eddie Murphy. And I was kind of just running out of things to do with the head, and I was kind of losing it a little bit. My director comes in. He's like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know. I just can't think of another cool gesture to do with the head in this one. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm trying to make a good shot. He's like, yeah, but like, just bob the head in time to what he's saying, and it's fine. I'm like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, I'm going to come back here in an hour, and you're going to be done with the shot. I was like, oh, okay. And he was right. Like, sometimes you need a really important gesture, and sometimes you just got to move the head in time to the voice, and it's totally fine. So I'd say that more for like a TV show where we're not trying to get it just right. We're just trying to keep things alive a little bit. For like a feature film, I would think much more carefully about getting just the right gestures, the right moment, making sure that each gesture is selling the way I want it to. And yes, I'm purposely doing extra gestures because I'm thinking about it. But if I wasn't, I'd still be doing them. So that's the basic motions for the parts of the face we care about. The mouth we do care about, but it's pretty open. It's a little bit moving more like the head. It doesn't follow through. But you can definitely ease in, ease out. You have a lot more flexibility on timing. It's a little bit less persnickety like the other parts of the eyes, eyelids, and eyebrows. So we'll hit that a little bit more when we talk about lip sync. Let's move on to the next part. All right, so we're going to take a look at some examples here. You notice I magically changed my outfit, and I made myself a cup of tea. And I also ate dinner and put my kid to bed. But I also added one thing here to the end. We're going to look at some resources at the end for you guys that should be helpful. But for right now, we're going to do this progression examples. These examples come from a guy named Jason Osipa who wrote the book Stop Staring, which is a great book about modeling rigging and animation. It's kind of like the quintessential first book on the way that we rig today. It's a great book. But he does this whole sequence about kind of talking through how he animates, and it's really, really great. We're going to first listen to the audio clip here without any... Well, actually, we can do this one. He basically goes through his when he animates expressions, goes through it, addressing each part of the face one at a time, kind of working through it progressively. It's actually a nice way to work if you know what you're doing. I think if you're starting out, it's a really kind of uncomfortable way to work. It's a similar way to way we in between. The nice thing about it, though, is it does give very naturalistic performances. So we're going to animate in a different way, but it really gives you a great sense of how each part of the body, or each part of the face, is aiding the performance. So I'm going to play his first part. He does lip sync first. I do it last. I'll explain why later. I'll explain why now. Once this comes up. And yes, it's like the tiniest video ever made. So the quality here really sucks. I apologize. And you'll notice it's Boxhead. Jason Osipa actually is the originator and creator of Boxhead, who was originally gray. I made him blue later. So it's not the split version that you guys have seen. It's the original version, which you can use either one. So for lip sync, I like to do lip sync last because depending on which way your character's face is pointing, it's going to change the way you want to animate the lips. And in some cases, your character might be pointing the complete opposite direction. You don't even need to show lips at all. You wouldn't have to do any lip sync. So I like to do it last. Boxhead is always going to be looking at the camera, so it's a little bit safer here, but I would never do it first. But he does, so here we go. This audio quality is going to be a little funky just because I'm playing through my speakers, so deal.
I'm default gray. Stupid gray. Boring. Get yours red. Ooh, flashy. Ooh, look at me, I'm red. Ooh, you small.
It's worth noting here that you can see... Stop it, Boxhead. It's worth noting here that, with just the mouth, we're not getting any life out of this. We're not getting any believability. We get the complete opposite, where it's just all eyes and eyebrows, and you get tons of feeling that the character is thinking. So that's part of the reason why we're kind of more or less ignoring the mouth right now. It's just not absolutely essential for those expressions and thought. Let's try the next one. So this one, when he does it, the next thing that he integrates is, I guess I can put this down here and not cover up my face. There we go. This isn't awkward at all. It's just what it's going to be. So the next thing he does is just head tilt. He likes to do just the up and down first and then side to side later. I don't like doing that because I want to think about movements in terms of gestures, which are three-dimensional. But that being said, let's check it out.
I'm default gray. Stupid gray. Boring. Doof. Get yours red. Ooh, flashy. Ooh, look at me, I'm red. Ooh, you strong.
It's worth noting that even just with this basic up and down tilt, the character is already alive. We have a lot of like build up the performance. We're thinking about rises and falls, which is really good. So there is some good stuff here. It's just a little random for my taste. The first time this is going to really come up to life is now with the eyes and the eye movement. I want you to notice again that it's move, stop, move, stop, move, stop, move, stop. Either the character is looking at the person they're talking, or they're looking away, going back, going away. But we'll always come back to that target or thinking off in space.
I'm default gray. Stupid gray. Boring. Doof. Get yours red. Ooh, flashy. Ooh, look at me, I'm red. Ooh, you strong.
To be fair, in this case, the character is more or less talking to themselves, so we're not really locking in other targets. It's just more them thinking in different positions. But you can see already with just those eye movements, the character is already coming alive quite a bit. Let's add those lids, and now we're going to really start to feel that emotion squeeze through.
I'm default gray. Stupid gray. Boring. Doof. Get yours red. Ooh, flashy. Ooh, look at me, I'm red. Ooh, you strong.
One thing to note here is kind of a good sort of a metaphor for all of expression, which is that we tend to kind of hold emotional states for a while we're feeling them and thinking through them. Maybe there's subtle changes from one to the next. But we're looking, as we listen to that clip, we're looking for the really big changes, the ones that are like, ooh, something changed there for sure. And we want to see a related change of expression if we're going to end up buying it. If we don't see that change of expression, we're just not going to believe the character's really having that emotional change. So watch this one again, especially with the lids, and look for those changes of emotion in the face based upon where the eyelids are. Again, also notice that it's move, lock, move, lock, move, lock. We're not constantly changing where the eyelids are. We're moving to a new position and just stopping there. Check it out.
I'm default gray. Stupid gray. Boring. Doof. Get yours red. Ooh, flashy. Ooh, look at me, I'm red. Ooh, you strong.
I don't know what happens at the end there, by the way. Okay, now the brows are going to add that extra emphasis. When they go at an angle, we're going to feel more thought. We can now push that sense of anger or the sense of sadness or depression, so we can kind of get more of a range here. Notice that the eyebrows are not going to rotate in place. So again, we're not looking for, oops, that's eyelids. We're not getting any of this action. It's all going to be coming down and pushing in or pushing up and out. We don't usually push up and down. That's kind of weird. You're looking for a compression like this. So it's usually out or in. You can do this though. That's okay. As long as you move to it. But again, move, lock, move, lock, move, lock. Let's check it out.
I'm default gray. Stupid gray. Boring. Doof. Get yours red. Ooh, flashy. Ooh, look at me, I'm red. Ooh, you strong.
So now we're really getting that emotional range. It's really kicking in. Each part of the face is dramatically changing how we feel with this character. It's timed out well to the dialogue. When you hear the emotional change in the voice, we're seeing an emotional change in the face. The last step here, he does extra blinks, little squeezes on the eyes, opening of the eyes, left and right on the head, a number of things to make this really come to play. But let's take a look.
I'm default gray. Stupid gray. Boring. Doof. Get yours red. I'm flashing. Ooh, look at me, I'm red. Ooh, you strawberries.
Okay, so we're seeing that each part of the each part of the face here is really driving part of its performance, but we're still looking at move, stop, move, stop, move, stop, move, stop. Sometimes we have additional inflections, but for the most part, it's the move, stop, move, stop. That's what's going to really sell a believable emotional state. Let's just do one more of these. Different character, different performance. Same box head. So here's the clip and the first tilt.
Big dumb stupid head. Listen up, buddy. There's two kinds of people in this world. Big dumb stupid heads like you and super beautiful perfects like me.
All right, and the eyes.
Listen up, buddy. There's two kinds of people in this world.
Excuse me.
Big dumb stupid heads like you and super beautiful perfects like me. Listen up, buddy.
It's worth noting this one that this character is actually talking to someone off to this side of the screen. So every time she looks away and comes back and reconnects with that person, we reinforce that there's someone actually there that she's talking to or feeling emotions towards.
Listen up, buddy.
This is Lids.
There's two kinds of people in this world. Big dumb stupid heads like you and super beautiful perfects like me. Listen.
Notice with this one, there's a lot more lower lid in this one than there is the last one. The last one's a little bit more angry. It's internally focused, but this one has a lot more self-focus on here, you could say. This character is very conceited, and a lot of that's being shown by the lower lids. The lower lids pulling up and making the character feel like they're thinking and acting a little bit more internally. Again, it's going to brighten up with the brows.
Listen up, buddy. There's two kinds of people in this world. Big dumb stupid heads like you and super beautiful perfects like me.
I love here that even though the character can't smile, you can feel it happening.
People in this world. Big dumb stupid heads like you.
So going from, a lot of expressions is about contrast. So moving from this expression where she appears to be angry and moving to this one here,
You and super.
where ultimately the brows are up. She's much more relaxed. We're bringing that lower lid, which is typical of a smile. It feels like a smile, even though not a thing has happened with the mouth. Conversely, if you just do the mouth as a smile, but it doesn't reach the eyes, then no one's going to believe it. That's a fake smile, in real life too. And then finally, our finesse pass.
Listen up, buddy. There's two kinds of people in this world. Big dumb stupid heads like you and super beautiful perfects like me.
So those are the two I want to show you, just because it gives you a sense of how each part of the face is working independently and how they're also working together in this case. All connecting, playing their own part. Ultimately, good expressions are going to be a layering effect. One gesture of one part of the face isn't going to do it. Each part of the face plays that part that's really critical, and together they sell the performance. All right. Ugh. So we're going to do a little in-class exercise. This is really important not just for you to watch me do it. Just like everything else, if you just watch someone do it, you're not going to get the same experience as if trying it yourself. Your first time doing expressions with 3D really shouldn't be like real expressions, not just I'm just dinking around. Really shouldn't be on your actual shot. It needs to be somewhere where you can practice and make mistakes. So even though it feels like it's probably working against your timeline, you should follow along on your computer and try this out. You can stop whenever you need to, play whenever you need to, so it's actually kind of an ideal setup here. What I want you guys to do is go on to D2L and go under the content page, look for in-class exercises and expressions, and I want you to download Boxhead, this one here, Boxhead Upset In-Betweening. So go ahead and download this. It is a zip file, so you're going to have to unzip it for it to work. Shrink this up for the moment. So just going to 7-zip this guy, or you can unzip whatever program you use. I'm going to extract to the actual folder. Now I'm going to go find it. Okay, so we have two files. We have an audio file and we have the box head in between file. It's already set up, ready for us to go. This is set up more or less like your assignment was for this week, just we're looking at major key poses. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. All right, now if you've done it right, which maybe I didn't, if you've done it right, you should end up getting the file, the WAV file automatically uploaded. If not, like it happened with me, just go down here to the timeline, right click and choose audio, which you can't see on my computer, but I am doing it. And you'll actually see, I mean, I kind of want you to see this. Let's see if I can get this in the screen. So if you go down to, where is it? Oh yeah, right there. So go to an audio. Right now it's on the off. I'm just going to click on Boxhead Monster Eyes Locked. This is, oh no, Upset. This one. Upset's the clip. I'm like, that doesn't seem right. And then the audio clip should pop up. If it doesn't play back, go over here and double check that you're running at 24 frames per second. And if you click on your option box here, you also want under your animation settings. Oops, no, it was under timeline, my time slider, my bad. Go to frame rate, make sure that's 24. And most importantly, make sure playback speed is at 24 frames per second times 1. If you do all that, you should be able to press play and hear it.
I can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset.
All right. So I'm trying to pull this back into shape. I guess I could pause while I do this horror show, but I'm so close. All right. So this is a clip from Mission Impossible, and where you're hearing, I guess the lead guy, Kittredge, so he's the kind of the boss of the unit, telling Ethan, who's sort of the do-it-all guy, is Tom Cruise's character. He's the action guy, telling him not to get upset, and he says he's going to get upset. I don't know the context beyond that, honestly.
I can understand you're very upset.
So this whole thing here, which I can understand you're really very upset, that's something being said to him, and then he responds with,
Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset.
So at the very beginning of this clip, he's doesn't have a lot to do. So I start with him just kind of looking to a different direction. This is a trick I use all the time. And then when the other character starts talking, he looks over at him and establishes this is where that guy is.
I can understand you're very upset.
So it's just the look over at the very beginning. He's just going to hold that for a while.
Kittredge.
And now he's going to deliver the line. So the first part, Kittredge, is delivered more aggressively with the head tilted down.
You've never seen me.
We get a little flare here when he says seen. You always want to be thinking about inflections in the voice when you hear them. When you hear something really strong there in the voice, those moments that really stand out, you want to think about a really good and contrasting expression of what you currently have in order to sell it. If you're doing really subtle stuff, there's a good chance we're going to miss it or not feel the connection.
Very upset.
At the end, he kind of goes back to this eye squinting as he's challenging this guy. It's really important while he's delivering these lines that when he looks over and he's talking through these, that it appears that he's still looking in the same place, which requires, in this case, to actually move some of the controls to balance it out. So actually here, I take that back. It's pretty convincing no matter what I do with the head right there. But you might have to adjust the eyes so it looks like they're still looking in the same place, even though they're not. Kind of like we talked about in class last week. So we're just looking at those main keys. If I grab all the controls here, you can see we just have the 1, 2. When he looks at Kittredge, he gets a little bit more aggressive, a little bit of a flare there as we hear that voice pick up. And then he comes back to maybe a little bit even more aggressive with those eyes squinting. So this is how I like to start out my shots, blocking it out just like the body, so I can hit my main key points here. And then I'll go back kind of like Jason Osipa does, and I'll just try to go through a pass on each part of the body all the way through. And generally you want to work from eyes out. So eyes, kind of like the hips out. Eyes to eyelids to eyebrows. And then finally I'll do lip sync. I forgot to mention the head too. And the head, it depends on how you want to do it. Some people want to do the head first. Some people want to do it last. It's kind of up to you where you want to do it. But probably in most cases you're going to want to work on it first because it's kind of like your canvas. So we'll do that as well. Before we do though, I know we're all ready and rearing to go, but I wanted to talk about a few more points in terms of how to approach doing expressions and making them actually work beyond just like how things are timed and stuff like that, but just how to actually, some general rules of the game. Or rather, I guess you can say rules of the game plus some ways to approach it. So the key concepts as you're animating are going to be these. So first of all, it's really important that you think about what your character is thinking about each moment and progressively. So start at the beginning. What is my character thinking when Kittredge first addresses him? Is he annoyed? Is he like, oh, who's that? Or is he thinking about his girlfriend? Does he need to go to the bathroom? What's going on here? And then that thought or that motivation is going to continue until something changes it. Well, Kittredge just called him out. Well, now he's annoyed. So that's happening. When does that happen? Does it happen right when Kittredge finishes his first statement? Does maybe as Kittredge is saying his statement, Ethan's character realizes where he's going with this and is already narrowing his eyes and is focused in. So you can kind of walk through and think about your expressions that way. Don't be afraid to change what you had in your initial blocking if you can think of something better. That's what blocking's all about. At that point, you just follow their thought progression and, as you put it, in poses, and work through each part of the face. And then we'll go back and work on each part of the face. But make sure those thoughts time out with when we should see them on screen. Remember, there's going to be thought first, emotion second, and then action or body action third. So the thought's going to happen. We have to think about when do they actually conceive of a certain thought, and then show the emotional response directly after that. Remember that changes in eye movement always will demonstrate active thought, whereas the character just staring into space, we're not going to feel it. Don't let your character just stare into space. Any change in expression is going to show the character had a thought, because ultimately it's showing there was an emotional change, and that thought was brought on by some kind of thinking they did. We do want to make sure to do those transitions between expressions correctly. Remember, we're going to transition and then hold that expression and let the head kind of keep everything alive. So the expression across the eyes, eyelids, eyebrows is going to move pretty quickly to the new expression and stop. If you don't stop during the performance and give your audience time to register the new expression, it'll never feel like they had a thought ever. So it's really important to have that pause. Remember, if your character is doing a really big move, you're better off doing a change of expression right before the movement happens or right after. If your character's in the middle of a big emotional outpouring physically and there's lots of movement associated with it, any expression change will probably get lost in the performance. So again, I usually end with it on an action, or I'll begin with it before the action kicks off. This kind of ties into the previous one, the very first one, but always know what your character is looking at and why. I know it doesn't say at, but it's supposed to be there. Where is your character's focus? Are they more up in their head? They're just thinking things out. Are they drilling that person with their eyes? Is that they're super focused on that? Maybe there's something that bites them on the shoulder and they look over and hit that. So the question is where are they looking? What information are they trying to gather from the scene at each moment, and when does it change? Think about the character focusing or relaxing focus for each pose. This will help you engage their eyelids and help convey thought. Remember that the eyelids squeeze or relax. So all this means is sometimes people will say something and you're like, wait, what was that? That's a moment of focus. And sometimes you're like, what was that? Oh, okay. Huh. And now you're defocused. So now you're relaxing your face as you think through it. So focusing in can help your brain sort of identify what's interesting or what's important. Relaxing gives them time to think. So as you go through the performance, look for chances to kind of focus in and chances to step back and relax. Be very consistent with your eye lines. So if you identify that right over there is that person I'm talking to, then every time they say something, you have to look back at that exact same spot. Otherwise, we're not going to believe it. If the character you first look at is over there, and then a minute later is over here, and then a minute later is down there, we're going to be confused. So try to find where they are off screen and lock them in with your eyes and always come back to that position. Just want to remind you again, one last time, that expressions hold their position. If you're floating from one position to the next for a long period of time, no one's going to believe your character is thinking. It's really important you move and lock. Like, hey, what's going on over there? Oh, it's my birthday? Great. You just talk while you're holding this expression right until something else changes your mind. Oh, that was my mom's favorite vase. Oh my gosh, we were in such trouble. Hold, 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 hold. It's not like the body at all in that regard. Last but not least, I do not want you to have box head look at camera. 99% of the time your characters are going to be looking slightly off of camera to deliver their lines, slightly off left, slightly off right, but never directly at it. It's very unnerving. So very rare instances where you get to do that. So the process we're going to use on the in-class exercise as well as your assignment to animate is we're going to first set up our keys, focus on creating strong poses that complement the changes in emotion and help drive the story. We should start to feel it coming together even before it's in-betweened. The in-between part of the expressions is going to be done in passes, just like we saw Jason Osipa do. So we're going to begin with the head and get a good head performance going, then go to the eyes, eyelids, work your way from out from the eyes, eyebrows, mouth. If you have a opposable mouth, you'd want to add that in at this point. And then finally a finesse pass, including blinks, pops, things like that in the eyes. We'll take a look at those. And then very, very last, you'd want to do your
Okay, so
lip
back
sync
in
to make
Maya,
sure that we feel
I'm turning my
connected
video off. I
with
seem to be having
character.
some sync issues, so I keep having to kind of fix that by hand. I don't want to have to deal with that, so I'm going to try doing it without video to see if that helps. So in here, we have our basic keys.
I can understand you're very upset.
We're on step tangent mode. So what I like to do here before I start in-betweening, I want to do a little bit of, how do I say it? We need to kind of time this out and block this out a little bit further before we move to the full in-between in-between part of this. The main thing that we're trying to do here is identify where does the character move their head, where do they change those expressions, how long does it take to change an expression. Right now, if I were to go from this, let's play it once here, fully through.
I can understand you're very upset.
Oh, what is going on? Okay, let's try again.
I can understand you're very upset. Pictured you never seen me very upset.
All right. So we're just seeing the step tangent version of this. If I go into the graph editor, that's all we got. Now, right now it reads okay. It's obviously very stiff and feels very dry. If I were to switch this over to, say, flat tangents, and now it's actually moving and animated, we're just looking at the key poses here as I use comma and period to jump through. This is not going to be an improvement. It's going to be very confusing. Let's see it.
I can understand you're very upset. Pictured you never seen me very upset.
The timing is really slow. It's really dragging. We're not really getting to see the expression changes effectively. This isn't working. So we need to do one more blocking pass to make this work. And the way this works is, recall that we're essentially going to hold poses until they change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just click on this first key here. I have everything selected, all my controls. I'm just going to click out here somewhere. Well, actually, if you want, you can do this as you go. If you want, think in your mind when the character is actually going to look over.
I can understand you're very...
Now, which is pretty hard to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this way. So what I want to do is grab that first pose. Remember, if you middle mouse button somewhere out here, and then press S, it's going to copy that key. So if you look in closely here, I'm just going to grab this and press F. We can now see the first pose holds and then changes right here. It looks like this.
I can understand you're very...
So now we have a hold
I understand you're...
and then the move. In this case, though, the move happens really fast, but now I have control over that. Let's say I'll
I want to spread this out a little bit. So I'm just holding in shift and middle mouse button dragging to give myself a little more time on this transition. Let's check it out now.
I can understand you very upset. I can understand you very...
Feels a little bit better now that we're holding. That being said, I don't like, in this case, that this key is happening so soon after he starts talking. We only got like 5 frames there. If someone talks, it's going to take a second for you to recognize you, or take a little bit of time, probably not a second. In this case, 5 frames doesn't feel enough. He's really lost in thought, doesn't care a whole lot about what this guy is saying. So I'm going to take both these poses, slide them off a little bit to give myself a little more time before he looks over. So Kittredge will start talking off screen, and then there'll be a beat before he turns and looks at him.
I can understand you very upset.
So that's better, but I want him to look a little bit slower, a little bit more menacingly. And it's happening now a little bit late. So I'm going to adjust this until it's now happening when I think it should. Let's see.
I can understand you very upset.
That felt pretty good to me. So there's a nice delay after Kittredge starts talking, enough to give him a reason to look over. And then the length of the transition here
Understand you very upset.
feels pretty good to me. Now as soon as we get to the other side of this, it starts drifting again. I don't want that. In fact, none of these am I going to want that. So for each pose, I'm going to go in there. What is that thing? There shouldn't be any keys in between poses. Maybe it's a handle? I don't know what that was. So with the next one, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to grab this pose, middle mouse click out here somewhere to hold that expression. And then I can decide right between these 2 keys how long the expression takes to make and when it happens. Sometimes you want expressions to happen before the character starts talking, sometimes after they start talking, sometimes right in the middle of them talking. Really depends on the moment. So I'm going to try this one out too.
You're very upset. Kittredge, you never...
Okay, you can see this happening each time. So now he holds the pose. And then it immediately starts kind of sliding out of that pose again. So I'm going to do this for each one of these. In this case, just the way I think about it,
Kittredge,
he's dipping his head in for the Kittredge.
Kittredge,
My guess is that's probably going to start happening before he starts talking. Because eyes, eyelid, eyebrow movement, that's all going to start before we hear the voice. It's much closer connected to the brain. So I'm going to slide this a little bit closer to the voice.
Kittredge, you never... Kittredge,
So that's probably maybe a little bit earlier.
Kittredge, you never...
Maybe even earlier.
Kittredge, you never... Kittredge,
I like that. So maybe 1 later. So 1 frame matters a lot in this, in terms of like how we're connecting the voice. So I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to go through the whole thing so you guys don't have to watch me do each part. And I'm going to decide how long each transition takes when we're showing the emotion and when it happens relative to the dialogue. So looking at that graph header, it's going to be hold, move, hold, move, hold, move, hold, move, all the way through. We'll be back in a second, and I'll show you what I did. All right, so we're back. Let's take a look at what I did. So again, what we're seeing in the graph header for expressions, I'm seeing lots of holds with moves that are kind of held in certain locations. So they're kind of trapped in there. This isn't perfect, but I like the timing overall in the feel. Let's check it out.
I can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset.
Okay, so it times out well. It's pretty dead of a performance because there's no overlap. I'm not playing with this much at all. There's no actual like distinctive movement of the head or anything. This is just the basic keys. But we should start to feel some connection to the voice at this point. Now, I will say here, I like the starting point.
I can understand you're very upset.
Initial pause before he looks over feels very directed. It feels very reactive.
Kittredge, you
I like this too, where he kind of comes down.
You've never seen me very upset.
But this part feels a little bit dead.
Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset.
So that part feels a little bit dead to me and a little stiff. So sometimes, and this is one of those times in my mind, Just zoom into this bottom part, this latter part here by pressing F. I don't know why that's not working. There we go. And this is actually really weird. There we go. So here, when he raises his head, what I'm going to do is, and I keep getting these weird keys, I'm going to turn that off just in case that's what's going on. Between here and here, so he raises his head right here, and then it just stops dead because I held the pose. This is one of the instances where actually turning this into a spline will actually continue the movement past the key and keep it moving all the way into the next key. In fact, I could go through here and do a spline on both to kind of keep a continuous curve. Let's see how this looks. It might be a little floaty, but let's see what we get.
I can understand you're very upset. Pictured you never seen me very upset.
Much better. So
You've never seen
when he goes to the scene, he kind of holds that pose. That's this part right here. Let's just look at one curve at a time. So what we're seeing here is before, where I held this, he would reach this key when he raises his head and then just hold that pose. If I grab both of these and turn them to spline, it's now going to move past the key and then kind of do a gentle hold up until the next key. Now I could play with this too. I could make this a little steeper here, but it's going to be a little bit late. I could flatten this out a little bit to give this a little bit more of an accent. There's nothing, you can do whatever you want to do. Let's see what the accent looks like.
Pictured you never seen me very upset.
It's still pretty soft, so that's the one downside here to cheating like this is ultimately the longer you do the hold, the more it's going to start to feel floaty. So maybe I'll pull that back down a little bit. When you're doing these things, though, you should do all controls at once and all keys at once. We're just roughing it in. So again, we're looking at this section right there. The rest of this, though, I'm liking very much.
Pictured you never seen me very upset. Me very upset.
I just want that last drop to be a little faster.
Seen me very upset.
So maybe I'd actually take this and hold it a little bit longer. Let's see how this works.
You never seen me very upset. You never seen me very upset.
I like that better. I just want this a little earlier.
You never seen me very upset.
And it might even be fun here. Man. It might even be fun here. I'm just going to zoom in, which isn't working either. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and break these tangents. So I'm going to choose weighted tangents. And now I can stretch out that last part a little bit. It'll kind of accelerate the movement here.
Pictured you never seen me very upset.
There we go.
Seen me very upset.
I just want to kind of sink into that a little faster. So I'm liking where this is going. I'm going to go ahead and save this out. And we'll say upset version 1. So now we have a blocking. Now we have kind of a general path of movement. The animation itself isn't very exciting on the head or anything like that, but we have the basic idea. So now with this in place, now we can go back in. Let's see if we can find the right one. Now we can go and start in between this and passes. Head, eyes, eyelids, eyebrows, mouth, finesse, lip sync. So let's do this one at a time, and I'll just talk about what I'm thinking as I go through it. Before I start in between, I'm going to go ahead and click on this button right here, which will automatically animate this. It shouldn't really matter. The fact is that Boxhead is so simple that he should animate just fine at full frame rates. Just to be safe, though, I'm going to turn that on. And then I also am going to turn on the auto keys so that as I make changes, it's automatically going to update my keys here. So what I want to do is go through each of these gestures and tighten them up a little bit. Either soften ends, add ease and ease outs, maybe add some gestures in the middle. Whatever I want to do, it's up to me. But ultimately,
start to play with that head a little bit. The nice thing about doing this method instead of Jason Osipa's of just kind of doing the up and down first and side to side is that they're very directed gestures. If you want to have the character shake their head and get lower and lower, you can actually do that because you're thinking in 3 dimensions. The one thing I would tell you guys as you do your clips is think about breaking up that space. We talked about this a little bit last week with the character looking in different directions. Otherwise, if they're looking in the same direction the whole time, it gets really dry. In live action, this works fine. In 3D, not as much. So let's check it out.
I can understand you're very upset. I can understand you're very upset. I can understand you're very upset.
So with this one, we want to be looking for opportunities for arcs. So I could play with something sort of just doing the head right now. I could play with like dropping this down a little bit to create a little bit of an arc. I have to say arcs with Boxhead don't work so well. He just ends up feeling really stiff in general.
I can understand you're very upset.
Actually, that's not bad.
I can understand you're very upset.
Just looked bad before it was rendered. That being said, I feel like this one actually would work better if it was a little bit straighter, a little stiffer on purpose.
I can understand you're very upset.
So he's just more deadpan. He's a little bit more deadly. That just sells better. I could actually, when he comes over here, I could add a little bit of arc up after this, so maybe he has a little bit of a follow through.
I can understand you're very upset. You're very upset. Kittredge, you know.
In this case, though, it feels really stiff. This is the rise at the end, so maybe I'd pull him over a little bit. Oh, I'm already bottomed out. Damn. I can't go any farther. So what I could do is I could go back to the previous key, just pull him back a little bit, so there's still a little bit of room to raise the head. And then a lot of these things, with especially in expressions, but also especially with Boxhead, you're going to have to go in here and fix stuff up. So the fact that it looks kind of funky is because I have a flat tangent right here. So when he comes into the final key, he stops and then lifts his head. If I want to actually make this look smooth, I need to use a spline tangent to make it feel like one smooth transition. So let's see what that looks like.
I understand you're very upset.
It feels like it's too much to me, so that's the translate Y. So maybe here I would just dial this down a little bit so it's not quite so dramatic. If I do want it to hold, I'd also have to bring this other key up to match this one.
I can understand you're very upset. I can understand you're very upset.
I'm not crazy about it. It's okay. I could also extend this out a little bit so it's a little softer, and I could use that spline technique. If I hit splines on these, it'll kind of do a little bit of a hold. I'm going to make this a little flatter, a little more subtle. That should keep the head going up at the end, more like a question.
I can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you. I can understand you're very upset.
As I watch this, though, I'm feeling like I'm just overplaying it. The fact is, it looks better as a straight line, straight and deadly. I'm going to undo all that and put it back to what it was before, which is no arc here at all, which I don't normally do. So let's watch this original one.
I can understand you're very upset.
If I wanted to add a little drift, I could do that. Very, very subtle here. So just a little bit of drift past the key. So it should maintain the main feel, but then give it a little bit more life past that.
I can understand you're very upset.
That's good.
I can understand you're very upset.
It's so subtle, but it does add a little bit more flair there. I'm going to add a little bit more on the X.
I can understand you're very upset.
So you can see just a little bit of breathing there. It just makes him feel a little bit alive. Sorry about the terrible noise. So I don't know if you can see the graph out there. I kind of had it off the screen. I apologize. So I just added, if you look at this key here, and actually we'll just look at one of them. They're both the same. So it hits this key that I put in and then drifts past it kind of subtly until the next key. So I'm just adding a little bit of life, a little bit of breath in there. All right. So I'm going to go through each pose and add in a little bit of that flair. I think I'll come back and show you what I've done. You can decide if you'd like that or if you want to do something different. I guess we'll keep you coming along with me for a little bit since we're almost to the end. So all I did here for this one,
Kittredge, you.
I
when he says Kittredge. I just added a little bit of anticipation. I don't need it. He can just drop his head straight down to here. But I thought I'd add a little bit more contrast and kind of emphasis if I had him come up just a little bit first, a little bit of anticipation before he drops his head down. I also liked a little bit of drift here, so it just didn't lock off. It felt a little dead. So I splined this out a little bit and added a little bit more curve here. Let's see what this looks like.
Kittredge, you never see.
So it almost feels like he kind of throws his head into it a little bit.
Kittredge, you never seen me.
I also feel like this part here where he raises his head isn't enough. I'm going to use my Y translate here to make this come up a little bit higher, but it maintains the structure of the curve, so it should feel like a similar animation.
You never seen me very upset.
That's better.
You never seen me very upset.
Now I'm tempted,
You never
as his head comes up,
seen.
to add some shaking to it, some of that nose shaking. It's probably going to be a little too much in terms of just the performance. This is kind of a more straight performance, but let's just see what that looks like. I also want to show you what a move would look like. So head shake. So I have this saved out. If I don't like it, I can just undo it. I don't have a lot of room to work in here. The current move is this.
You never seen me very upset.
So the question is, can I get his head to shake instead? So as he comes up, I'm just going to go a few frames to the side, a few frames back, which I don't have a lot of room to do. This is always as far as he goes. And then maybe just to keep things interesting, have him come back just a little bit here. Let's see what that looks like.
Never seen me very. Kittredge, you never seen me very upset.
So here,
You never seen me.
getting a little flare. It's too fast though. It's just too much. I'm just trying to do too much. So maybe I'll get one head shake in there and see how that looks. But my guess is all this will be too much.
Kittredge, you never seen me very upset.
Yeah, it's not enough. Not enough for a shake to have him just do it one direction. I need both, and there's not enough time for it. I can space this out a little bit more, but I'm only going to get so much time on this one. So let's see here. If I were to just do the X and stretch this out a little bit, is that enough? Let's see.
Kittredge, you never seen me very upset. Kittredge, you never seen me very upset.
Now, I think I appreciate the
Kittredge,
flare,
You never seen me very.
but I'm not buying it. I'd also want to be able to come back a little farther here, but I can't because the head can't turn that far. I'm already at the extent of how far this guy can go, so that makes it tough too. I could go back and take this entire curve and make him not be quite as far. So that means he'll shake his head both directions.
Kittredge, you never seen me very upset.
But regardless, I don't like how this is working. So I'm just going to undo that and go back to just the straight delivery.
Kittredge, you never seen me very upset.
Sometimes less is more, and this is definitely the case here. I could, if I want, maybe at the end,
Me very upset.
maybe as he comes down, he looks at him more from the side, maybe a little more dangerous. Could be kind of interesting. I would need to adjust the eye line here to look back at Kittredge. Let's see.
Kittredge, you never seen me very upset.
So maybe a little bit questioning. If you're always straight up and down, side to side, it gets boring pretty fast.
Kittredge, you never seen me very upset.
If I really want to make this look good, I'd probably want to add a little bit of an arc into it. I'll just go into the middle of the movement here. So you can see it over here. Sorry, there's not a lot of room in the screen. And then I could add in a little bit of arc, so it'd be here. Oops, I just got rid of that. So I'll key it where it is. And all I'm going to do here is on this last little move, I'm just going to make it dip a little bit. When I'm working on a character like Max, a normal 3D character, I do it visually. Here, it's probably going to work a little bit better with the graph editor just because he's not really moving in normal dimensions. Let's just see what we get.
Kittredge, you never seen me very upset. Kittredge, you never seen me very upset.
I like it. Something a little bit different. It's interesting. He's more deadly the other way, but this way is definitely interesting. I'm going to add a little bit more swoop down on the first part, then have it level out a little bit later. Let's see.
You've never seen me very upset.
I like that.
Never seen me very upset.
All right. So now with just a little bit of head movement and a little bit of life there, we're getting something that feels a little bit more believable. Let's check out the final performance for the head alone.
I can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset.
So we're starting to get some of those inflections in there. It's not really complicated gestures, but sometimes it doesn't need to be. This is more of, again, that deadly delivery. It's still not super alive, and that's because we've only done one component. So let's keep working through this, watching that overlap in action, starting to think about some of those more subtle performances here. So let's move on to the eyes. Okay, I have to say with this clip, we're not going to get as I'm listening to it, I'm not picturing a ton of eye movement there. He's going to be really focused on the person he's talking to, Kittredge, and he's talking to him, and he's going to be maybe studying him. So maybe we can get some of those little eye darts in there. So when he looks over, here, maybe we can get some of those eye darts back and forth as he's listening to the guy.
Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset.
But this isn't the type of clip where he's going to be looking off to the side and then looking back at him, just because he's going to be totally focused on him the whole time. So I think this one's going to be pretty simple. We're going to keep mostly what we have here. Now the eyes do move slowly here, but I intend to blink them. If I didn't, then I need to actually speed this up and make this move a lot faster. I'm going to show you a couple examples just so you might want to try some of these things. So here, as the character starts to move, I could actually push the eyes back to where they were. Let's see. So basically the head, this will force the sense the head is moving first.
I can understand you very upset. I can understand you very upset.
To me that feels a little bit weird though. I feel like he's definitely more focused on where he's looking at, but I think in this case, to get that deadly feeling, he's actually going to look over a little faster. So what we could do is, we could have the eyes start a little bit sooner. So eyes will start moving before the head. We always want to be looking for opportunities for overlap. Usually eyes first, eyelids second, eyebrows third. And we could have the eyes move over quite a bit faster. So I'll take my key over here. Let's see what that looks like.
I can understand you very upset. I can understand you very upset.
So here now the eyes move much more like they're supposed to.
I can understand you very upset.
And the head follows through afterwards. This is great. We are getting some automatic overlap. In terms of number of frames, this is a slower move. We're looking at 7 frames, but still totally reasonable in terms of amount of time. You can play with this. What happens if you moved his eyes over in like 4 frames?
I can understand you very upset. I can understand you very.
Doesn't feel as casual. I don't like it. What if it's a little bit slower?
I can understand you very upset.
That feels good to me. I like it. So the eyes are going to go a little bit sooner here because it's being led by his eyes. Often your eyes lead your head. Sometimes your head leads and your eyes follow. Depends on what you're focused on. Once he's over here, I'm going to go ahead and just let him pause for a second, and then we'll add a little eye dart in there.
Understand you very upset.
So maybe like right around here. Eye darts are really small and quick, like maybe a couple frames. Sometimes just one, and they're really small movements. So just like that. And then usually they would hold again. Now in this case, I'm going to have to actually copy that frame over so he holds that pose. Let's
I
see.
understand you very upset. Kittredge, you never understand you very upset.
Maybe we can actually get in 2 because he's super sharp and smart. So I'm going to hold this again. And he's going to then just kind of dart back the other way.
Understand you very upset. Kittredge.
One more time.
Understand you very upset. Kittredge. You're very upset. I can understand you very upset. Kittredge.
Yep, I'm not crazy about it. It's just too much. I'm just trying too hard. So I'm going to take out that extra pose, put this one back. He'll just have the one little eye dart.
Understand you very upset.
Again, a little movement here can really offset us pretty quickly, so we don't want to go too crazy here. You can also, instead of eye darting down to the side, I could have eye darted down instead.
and then come back up here.
I can understand you're very upset. Kitchen.
Oh, need to lock that pose
I
off.
can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you never... I can understand you're very upset.
Yeah, not crazy about that either. I just don't have much time to squeeze this in there. If you're ever like finding yourself just like shoving stuff in there and it's just not taking, it's probably because you're doing too much. So I'll just leave with that one eye dart, and I can almost use it like an anticipation for him starting to answer.
I can understand you're very upset.
It's so subtle though. I think I need a little bit more movement on it for it to read.
I can understand you're very upset. Kittredge.
And it's a little too delayed for me.
I can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you never...
I also notice that as we go back here, so as it comes back, it slides over again. So I need to actually maintain that eye pose a little bit longer.
I understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you never seen me.
I don't mind that it goes back. In fact, it might be a way to kind of make it more feel like eye darts.
Kittredge, you...
So maybe here he would actually go back to the previous position. So I'm just going to copy the pose right here and just have him go back.
Very upset. Kittredge, you never...
Every time I update the most recent pose, I have to take the last one, or the next key, and make it the same. Otherwise, it just drifts. We don't want drifting.
And you're very upset. Kittredge, you never seen me.
So it's pretty subtle,
Very upset. Kittredge, you...
but I like that basic idea, which is that little bit of shifting in the eyes, especially for someone who's studying someone else very carefully.
You're very upset. Kittredge, you never...
I just made it a little bit less. I could have also done that in the graph editor. So this right here represents the eye dart. The eyes shift a little bit and then shift straight back. The reason why it looks weird is if I add a new key in here, a new position, it slowly returns to the previous position and it looks bad. So I want to make sure that I always have to make sure these two keys match. With it in the graph editor now, the nice thing is if you want this to be a bigger eye dart, you can make it bigger. It's going to be ridiculous, but
Kittredge,
actually I kind of like it.
and you're very upset. Kittredge, you...
It's probably a little much, but I like the idea. We could even have it shift back this way, but oops, no we can't. We can even have it shift back this way a little bit so he's covering more territory, but then now I have to fix this so the key maintains. Let's see.
Very upset. Kittredge, you never seen me.
Alright, it's pretty subtle. I'll leave it for now. But you can play with this stuff for hours, honestly, until you get just the right performance. I will fix this one, though. So let's make sure... let's see.
Kittredge, you never seen me. Very upset.
So with this one, I'm just going to... Let's see here, we'll hold it and we'll just make it a more definitive shift back.
Kittredge, you never seen me. Very upset.
And then at the very last, I feel like he's not quite looking in the same space. I need to make it feel as his head slides to the side that he's still looking directly at Kittredge. I'm going to do that over here.
Never seen me. Very upset.
That's pretty good. That's better.
You never seen me. Very upset.
Again, I just want to make sure I maintain the feel that he's looking at this guy.
You never seen me. Very upset.
If it feels like his eyes are drifting, I'll do something more dramatic.
Seen me. Very upset.
Well, now it looks like he's looking at someone who just got taller. So it's really important that as you do it, that you really get a sense of where he's looking and make sure it feels the same. If I actually just maintain this key, it's likely that it's going to feel like it's just drifting.
Seen me. Very upset.
Yeah, now it looks like he's looking a little bit to the side, so I don't like that either. Let's see if there's anywhere I want to make sure the eyes move before the head, and then we'll call it a day for the eyes.
Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset.
He's just staring him down, so it doesn't really matter. I think this is going to come more into play when we add blinks. So I think we're good with the eyes. No reason to overdo it. They're working well. So the next one to focus on is the eyelids. A lot of people just kind of skip over these because they feel less important, but I can't emphasize it enough how critical the eyelids are. If I catch you animating and not using the eyelids as a resource, ultimately I'm going to dock you big points. I've seen performances come even after I've said that literally have no eyelid movement whatsoever. It just looks really bad. Now the main thing, the main keys are already in here, but what we don't have is we don't have any blinks, and we're missing some emphasis that we could actually play with these eyelids to add a little bit more flair, a little bit more fun. Otherwise it starts to feel really, really dry. So the first thing is, let's add in an eye closed blink as he looks over.
You can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset.
You can also play the clip and look for opportunities to blink, but technically he wouldn't have to blink during this entire clip. This is only like what? It's only like 5 seconds total. So you can certainly go for 5 seconds without blinking, but one blink here would be nice just to liven it up, loosen it up a little bit. If I want to make him feel more severe, stern, focused, then maybe I wouldn't actually do much with the eyelids for the first part. I could see it being, I didn't put it in the initial performance, but it might be nice to add a little bit of squinting right there as he looks over. Maybe he's like giving him the, more of a the evil eye. The only problem with that is then this moment here doesn't really sell as well. I could exaggerate that though. Let's try that out. So no reason why you can't change your initial poses if you realize the movement isn't interesting enough. So here, as he starts to go over, I'm going to let his eyes go first, then his head, and actually as his eyes finish coming over, that's where I want to have the lids start to actually compress a little bit. So I'm going to grab this key, slide it over, and then here, I'm going to force the change to happen a little fast, a little bit more dramatically. So I'm going to pull his eyes in a little bit, just a little bit. That's actually a lot. So I'm going to back that off just a little bit. The idea is we want to get a little bit of sense that this guy is, again, that sense of danger. When I go too low on the upper lids, it's going to start to feel sleepy. We want him to feel focused, not sleepy. And then I'm going to copy this pose over to here.
You can understand you're very upset.
So just a little bit of squeeze adds a little bit of that tension there, and I like that. So not what I had before, but I like it now. He's going to hold that pose, and then again, I just want to hold this pose until the next movement. So let's see here. Looking for my graph editor. So again, a lot of expressions are going to look like this. You're going to hold, move, hold, move, hold, move. That's what we typically do with our most of our facial parts of our face. So now when he goes to this one, this expression here, this one now isn't squinty enough. So what I want to do is adjust it so we have more of a change. Let's see here. I'm looking at the eyelids, right? Yeah. So let's try a couple things here. We can get a little bit more focused, like this. So a little bit more upset, a little more angry. I might need to adjust the eye line a little bit here too. It might also be fun to have the left eye and the right eye do something different. So maybe he's a little bit squintier with one than the other. So his right eye, if he leads with that one, maybe we back off on this one a little bit. So we have a little bit of asymmetry. Just a little bit. We can do top and bottom, just one of each.
See how that looks.
I can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset.
Cool. I like
I
it.
understand you're very
Notice here the eyes go first, followed by the eyelids, followed by the head. So we're having overlap on everything there.
upset.
Here, again, I want the head goes first and then the eyes a second, followed by the eyelids.
Kittredge, you've never
Here, everything's kind of going all at once. This would be a nice time for the eyelids to go a hair earlier. So I'm going to slide them just a few frames earlier. So you can see now the eyelids are kind of leading the action a little bit.
Kittredge, you've never seen me.
It's a little bit too much. Feels very too deliberate.
Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset. Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset.
So that little overlap there is kind of nice. I like that.
You've never seen me very upset.
And then for the last one, it's mostly a matter of when they happen. So right now everything's happening at once. Once again, typically if you're unsure, you want the eyelids to lead a little bit. So I'm going to have them go a little couple frames earlier before the head.
Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset.
So that helps it feels a little more directed. That being said, I still haven't put a blink in there. I completely forgot. Let's add at least one blink in there. A nice thing you can do is just sort of play it and sort of feel where you think the blinks would be. Or if it's a moment where you really need to feel the blink out, then you can add it in specifically in that one place.
I can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, I can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset.
Man, it's a tough one. Watching this, I feel like, while he's looking at staring Kittredge down, I don't really want him to blink much, but I want to get him somewhere, and I think one of the best places to do it here would be towards the beginning, where he's just kind of looking off in space. This is an easy time for him to add a blink in there.
I can understand.
So maybe a little beat right in here. I'm going to add a blink in right here. So remember, a blink is usually the average one is 6 frames. This is no super special moment. I'm just going to do an average one. So I can put my first key in here, then 1, 2, 3, let's see here, 1, that is the first one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then here would be the 6th frame. So I'm just going to kind of bracket it. I didn't make any changes. I just added in the keys in the beginning and end. And then in the middle, remember, we're going to have the eyes closed, which is going to be mostly upper lid, and then a little lower lid. With box set, unfortunately, we lose the eyes completely. If you want to try it, you can leave a little bit of a slit, but I find that if they're completely closed, it reads better. So I'm going to key it here and on frame 15. Here, I'll move in here so you guys can see it's a little bit better. First frame, last frame, 2 closed frames, and then we have an in-between frame here, but I don't want to match the in-between frame right here, and they're going to match perfectly. So at the beginning, do you want his eyes to close a little faster, a little bit slower? I'm going to have them be a little bit more open here. And on this one, they're going to be a little bit more closed. We'll see what it looks like.
I can understand you very. I can understand you very.
It feels natural. I feel like it should be a little bit slower just because of the speed that he's moving at. He's kind of slow in general. That slow, deadly feel. So I'm going to give him a little bit more time here. Maybe 1 extra frame of closing.
I can understand you very. I can understand.
And 1 more frame of opening. So I'm going to go to a full 8 frame blink here. Just because the character is moving slow.
I can understand you very.
I like that better.
I can understand you very.
But now it feels like it's part of the move. I'm going to move this up a little bit earlier.
I can understand you very. I can understand you very.
Well, now that I made it a little bit slower, I don't like it as much because it's either too close to the beginning or too close to him moving his head. So maybe I'm going to make it a little bit faster instead. So maybe I'll try the 5 frame blink.
I can understand you.
Nope, don't like that. Go back to the 6.
I can understand you very. I can understand you.
That's not bad. Let's watch it in context.
I can understand you're very upset. can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you never
I still feel like he probably needs a blink like right when he's watching him, so maybe like right in here. So I'm just going to copy these frames over. Actually, I guess I'll just use the ones I have here. So we'll key this here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we'll copy the two closed frames in the middle. See how that looks.
I can understand you're very upset. Kittredge.
Oops. Did something weird there. Let's try one more time.
I can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you never. I can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you never seen me very upset.
I want to be careful about getting the blinks too close to the beginning or the end. If they get really close to the beginning or the end of the shot, it makes it much harder to cut and find a good place to edit. So this is feeling pretty good. I do feel like at the end, there's room for him to blink again there once his head gets over. So I could try to put another one in here. So again, I'm just going to kind of lock this off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'll take the eyes closed position again over here. I didn't go far enough.
Never seen me very upset. Very upset.
I feel like this is a little bit.
Seen me very upset.
I feel like this is a little bit. It kind of breaks the moment a little bit. So maybe I'm not crazy about that one.
I can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you never seen me very upset. Understand you're very upset.
And this feels a little bit too kind of in like a beat.
I can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you.
I like that better. So he blinks
I
here.
can understand you're very upset. Kittredge.
We get a little bit more of a pause before he starts his speech. So maybe even a little bit more. Almost as if the blink after he gets his head over is just kind of to reset a little bit.
I can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you never seen me very upset.
The one at the end feels natural, but I don't like it. I'm just going to take it out and have him stare him down. It feels more uncomfortable in, I think, a good way. Last word here is just notice what I'm doing here is I'm trying things out. I have an idea. I put it in there, see how it feels. If I don't like it, I move it around. If I can't get it to feel right or it's kind of killing the mood, I just take it out. I'm relying on my initial keys for expressions to kind of hold this together, but the rest of this is all just keeping this alive and making this feel more directed. So let's move on from the eyes. All right. So the foundation is here, and the thing you want to work on this whole time, the brows, are waiting for us. We're going to get to add a lot of cool inflection here, can really play these up. Everything else is going to just kind of keep this rooted, but this is what's going to let us have a little more fun. Up front here with my brows, I've been a little bit relaxed in general. They haven't been doing much. So we can definitely play with these more than I have been. The main thing is looking at when they're going to go and when they're going to start moving and stop moving. So, and how long they're going to move for. Right now, they're just kind of, doing that hold pose thing that we set up at the very beginning, which you can see here in the graph editor. So right now, they're just move, hold, move, hold, move, hold, which is fine. But we want to offset that action a bit and get some more visual interest here. So, when you're thinking about the brows, there's a couple different ways to do it. One way is that they can actually initiate the movement of the eyelids, so that you can have the brows move first, and then the eyelids go second, followed by the eyes. Or you can have it go the other way around, sort of like a movement out from the eyes. So the eyes move first, followed by the eyelids, followed by the eyebrows. Just depends on the moment. The main thing is we don't want them to all go together. The other nice thing here is that we can have the brows sort of soften the edge of the movement. They can start a little bit, where they start early or late, we can have a nice big ease in, ease out, and they can actually drift a little bit past the end of the expression. So let me give you an example here. So first of all here, we did add some lid movement. We should add a little bit of squeeze on those eyebrows. So
I can understand you very. I can understand you very.
So here, we're going from this expression to here.
I could see a little bit of compression here and probably a little bit of movement like this. One thing to know about expressions is it's all about relativity. So this isn't much, but for a guy who doesn't move much, that's actually quite a bit. You don't need to bottom these out every time you want to, get across that the guy is upset. It's just those subtle differences that go a long way. So here, this is him being a little bit, less believing, a little bit unsure. We could try the other way too. Yes. Right. Oops. You can see they're actually sliding down. Let's have them go up a little bit. Maybe he cocks one eyebrow a little bit. Now this is going to drift from here to here because they're no longer locked in. So I'm going to lock these off just so you can see what I'm doing. Pull the graph editor back up. Now that I've changed this pose, they're no longer holding their expression. So I'd have to go to the next pose and copy that over so that it actually holds until the next change happens. So every time you make a change, you have to do that.
I can understand you're very upset. Kittredge,
So now
I can understand you're very...
it's more questioning. I don't like it as much though. I definitely like him being a little bit annoyed. Remember, you can't just have the eye... I'll show this a little bit better. You can't just have the eyebrows rotate in place. It looks weird. You want to make sure that when you make the eyebrows move, that they also go up or down, so we get a sense of compression. I don't want to overdo this one though. I just want a little bit of subtle, like, what? I don't like your kind. Again, I'll copy that pose over here.
I can understand you're very upset.
So that I like. I think it's working pretty well. Again, the question is, when do the eyebrows start moving? I'm going to have them start after the eyelids, so probably all the way here into frame 25, and they're going to finish after the move. So they're going to compress all the way into, say, frame 39. So I'm going to move these. So they start a lot later, and they finish a lot later. That's going to overlap and kind of cushion the movement. Let's see how this feels.
I can understand you're very upset.
That's a little too much, a little too delayed.
I can understand you're very upset. I can understand you're very upset.
And I actually want a little more inflection on there, so I'm going to dial it in a little bit steeper.
I can understand you're very upset.
Again, a little too delayed for me.
I can understand you're very upset.
That's better.
I can understand you're very upset.
Remember, when the eyebrows are coming down, we can let them drift a little bit. When they're going up, that's when they need to jump more definitively. We can also play with this a little bit in terms of the movement. So from here to here, what I could do if I want, since I got flat tangents, I can make the movement drop a little faster in the middle and then kind of fade to the end, a little more ease out.
I can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you... very upset. Kittredge, you...
Now, one thing I haven't talked about that's really important is I know that this is the big moment. You never seen me upset. If this is a moment where I want to push the eyebrows up, if I know I want the eyebrows to come up here, I want to make sure in the moment beforehand that they are down. That just adds more contrast. So I'm actually going to push this a little bit further. Back in the graph editor, when we do our next change, I'm going to adjust this pose and make it go even deeper. And then I'll get a much bigger pop when we go to this pose.
And you're very upset. Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset.
So now I get a little bit more of that sense of that eye flare, which I like. Might need to adjust my eyes a little bit here too. I'm not crazy about the pose. Let's see. I just want to make sure I still got the sense that he's looking up. As those eyebrows come down, it makes it look like he's looking down more than he is.
And you're very upset. Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset.
Whoa. I definitely did something weird there. undo that. Go back to what I had, which I liked.
Very upset. Pictured you never understand you very upset. Pictured you never seen it. Pictured you.
So that jump is an awkward one. He's like in a completely different position.
And you're very upset. Pictured you never.
Sorry, I'm sure this is not fun to watch. This is the new key. I'm just going to copy this over to here and delete the stuff in the middle. That did not work.
Pictured you never seen me very upset.
I'm not quite sure what's happened there. At some point I lost my key for the eyes. I'm going to stop for a second and just fix it so you guys don't have to watch it. Alright, it's definitely better. I'm not sure what happened there. He looks up.
Pictured you never seen me.
So just holds that pose, and then at the very end,
Very upset.
we'll shift back. So we're back to where we should be. I'm going to save that. I don't want to do that again. Alright, so back to the brows. So in this case, getting a little bit of a rise in the brows. I don't actually remember putting that in there. Let's just check the graph editor. Huh. Oh, it's perception because the head is moving. It looks like the eyebrows are moving too. This is actually fine. This is one of those things that as the head drops, I would want the brows to go a little bit early to kind of cushion that a little bit. So I'm going to actually have them start a few frames early and help kind of lead the charge. If I want, I could actually even extend them at the end so that they're still moving after the head gets there.
Pictured you.
Let's see what that looks like.
Pictured you never.
That's a little too much. Or I need to soften it a little bit more with a little more ease out.
Upset. Pictured you never seen me very upset. Very upset. Pictured you never seen me very upset.
Okay, so that's working better.
Pictured you.
Now for this part,
Pictured you never.
I definitely want them to lead the head, so I'm going to have these guys go a little bit early. You can also do this in the dope sheet, by the way, if you prefer.
Pictured you never seen me very.
Go and give it a little bit more. Again, we have more flexibility in the eyebrows than we do on anything else.
Pictured you never seen me very upset.
Now if I go too smooth on these,
Pictured you never seen me.
it's going to feel a little awkward. So while I said the eyebrows jump,
Never.
we don't want to go too crazy. Part of this is because I'm letting them kind of fade here, so I'm going to flatten that tangent because that's supposed to be a hold. And I'm going to make them move a little bit faster, see how that feels. That should be more natural, but that might be too fast.
Pictured you never seen me very upset.
No, that's better.
Pictured you never seen me.
I can go even faster here. See how that works. So we're looking at maybe 4 frames. And these actually aren't moving together anymore.
Pictured you never seen me.
Okay, that's too fast. Again, heavy ease and ease out can go a long way with eyebrows.
Pictured you never seen me very upset.
Nah, I think I want it longer.
Pictured you never seen me.
And I think I'm leading a little bit too early.
Pictured you never seen me very upset.
And actually I want this to be a little slower at the beginning and most of the movement right in the middle. So just kind of playing with those curves a bit.
Pictured you never seen me very upset.
There we go.
Pictured you never seen me very upset.
So we get a little bit of flare with the eyebrows. It's pretty nice. I like where that's going.
Pictured you never seen me very upset.
There are times when I have the brows go at different times, but typically I'm having them move together. Some animators like to do that all the time. I don't. But you can kind of do it however you like. Maybe a little more compression here at the end to dive this in a little bit deeper.
little more extreme of a pose.
You've never seen me very upset. I can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset.
I somehow missed deleting the blink here at the end. I don't want him to wink at him.
Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset.
And then here for the end,
Seen me very.
I want the brows to delay a bit. So eyelid's already going, head is going. I just can't see the brows when they start too early. So I'm going to make this movement a bit faster. And have him compress at the end. Let's see how that feels.
Seen me very upset.
It's okay. Move it a frame earlier and make it even faster.
You've never seen me very upset.
That's better.
I can understand seen me very upset.
All right, let's see what we got. I'm going to save this out. I haven't saved this one for a while. That's not good. And let's see what we have.
I can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset. I can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset.
Doesn't seem like much, but again, we did most of the work at the beginning when we set up the initial expressions. This is actually working well. Once I get the actual lips moving in there, this will start to really spring to life. Now it's worth noting in here, I didn't really put in much of asymmetry in here. The asymmetry for me would come in as part of the initial pose, not as much in the movement. Our face does tend to move symmetrically. There's overlap between the different body parts, but the left and right tend to move together most of the time. If there's times like when you're doing an eye raise, like right here, sometimes I'll let that extra brow go a little bit later. So I could actually offset this one. So as it's coming up, it takes another frame to get there, which could be kind of interesting
You've never seen.
and kind of help lift the face a little bit. Again, this stuff is mostly subtle. Most of expressions are, again, move, hold, move, hold, move, hold. The one thing which unfortunately doesn't work in this clip as well that we could have had more fun with was more head movement. A lot of like the life of the face comes from that head movement and then the expression on it at that time. So that'd be one thing I could definitely play with here. Sometimes also I'll go through and do another pass where I'm looking for opportunities to have the eyes focus in a little bit. So, you know, in the middle of a move, in the middle of a pose, you know, maybe you realize you just want to grab those eyelids and do a little flare just for a quick second, just a little bit of a pop. Let me pull off the auto key there. Or the opposite, maybe you squeeze in a little bit or you focus in on something. Like those are things that maybe you didn't play with before during the main poses, but now it kind of makes sense to add that in and connect to the voice a little bit more. The next phase for me would be doing the mouth if it's posable, playing with the expressions and when they happen. But we're going to focus, that'll probably happen again mostly in the initial keys phase, and then it'll just be the lip sync after that with the expressions on it. Obviously we don't have expressions with box head, so just the lip sync. I'm going to have that in a separate video because I've already pre-recorded it. Mostly just be looking for you know, extra finesse in the blinks, pops, eye darts, things like that that maybe you didn't have before that you feel like are necessary. But this is working out well. We definitely have a connection to the voice. We have move, hold, move, hold, move, hold with strong expression changes when they make sense in the voice. We have a strong sense of where the other character is off the frame relative to this person. They keep looking back at them. All those things are functioning as I would like them to. This sounds maybe a little simpler than you were thinking. It's because expressions, you know, honestly, the main principles are, compared to the body, is mostly doing a little bit less in terms of the actual movement, focusing a good bit on the overlap, and then really holding those expressions so we can actually see them and see what they're doing. A lot of people can't help themselves but actually keep things moving all the time. The only thing that should be moving all the time would be the head itself. That's something that you can keep alive and play a little bit more with. And then keeping those eyes alive by moving them around. In this case, unfortunately with this clip, I can't keep the eyes moving as much. It just would feel a little bit awkward. So maybe next time I'll choose a clip with a little bit more expressive character in there. It really helps when those eyes are darting around and looking, but it just doesn't make sense for this clip. I don't want to overplay it. I actually have these in reverse order. I'm going to go ahead. I'll do the assignment first. Why not? So the assignment for next week is, as you might expect, I want you to take your blocked performances, which I'll give some feedback on, and I want you to finish animating them. Go through, time them out so that actually the changes in the expression happen at the right time and for the right length, and then go back and do a pass on each part: head, eyes, eyelids, eyebrows, lip sync, and bring the whole performance together and bring it alive. You guys should be able to have a lot more fun than I did, at least on this sample, with the actual head movement. So my recommendation there would be actually record a performance of yourself or record a performance of someone else and use that to get you some ideas for the head movement. You can even just think about it as you're doing it. Go ahead and do the performance and see what your head does. And then kind of use that as a basis for what Boxhead can do. Obviously, I'm playing it up a little bit here, but that totally works. So don't try to give the sense of a body. You don't have one. I don't want you to fake one. Just focus on the head movement and then the facial controls that we have. Again, you can use the regular Boxhead if you want. You can use a split control Boxhead. It's not that much harder. You can choose to use it or not if you want. Or choose to use a split if you want. If you want or not, you can add it in as needed. So let's go through the assignment really quick so you know what's expected. So this will be the expression animation, not the pre-production, the expression animation. All right, you guys have already done this first part here, so no big deal. I'm sorry, I'm looking at myself and not you. So this is all the same as before. You already established your keys. Go back and then make changes if you need to after some of the stuff we talked about today. If you like where it's going, then you can use that as your starting point and then spend the rest of your time in-betweening. For this next week, your main job is doing the in-betweens, doing passes on each one. Don't get tricky and kind of separate it out or do them all at the same time. Do a pass, the whole thing on each part. You'll get much better, more naturalistic results. Again, the main thing you want to keep in mind about the expressions is that they're going to move and hold until they need to move again, until the character has a change of expression, even a small one. But that move and hold is going to be critical for us to sell this, for you to sell this. The main requirements here are, again, between 18 and 15 seconds for your final shot. If you do go over there, I'm okay with that as long as the quality is still excellent. Make good use of those eye lines to establish things outside of the character, other people they're talking to, things like that, or objects they're looking at. Remember that if the character off screen is talking, your character on screen should be reacting. They shouldn't just be dead during that time. You may not have Boxhead look at camera. And I want to see good, smooth overlapping actions without unintentional pops or jitters. If they're intentional and they work, that's fine. I do want Boxhead framed completely in camera, so don't make them small. I tend to find off-center performances look a little bit better. I'm trying to find my here. So, setting up Boxhead over here, looking to the side, or over here, looking to the side tends to sell much better. Stuff in the center tends to feel a little bit lost in space, but if you think it works for yours, that's fine. It's just a different feel. I don't want to see Boxheads like this big. That's not okay. And preferably, of course, not preferably, required 1920 by 1080. For the submission, where did it go? Again, 1920 by 1080, H.264 compression. Here's how you label it. Last name, first name, _ expression. Definitely watch the video when you're done and make sure that it's actually running at the correct frame rate, which is 24 frames per second. And make sure that he shows up well. There's some rendering tips here for Boxhead. If you're having trouble getting him to render correctly, check these out. That can sometimes cause problems. They're not hard to fix. They're super easy. The main thing is if you want a background here. By the way, don't render this with Arnold. Just render this with Maya Software. So when you go in here, just choose Maya Software. And if you turn, let's put this to 1920 by 1080. And then in here, if you keep the alpha channel, whatever camera you have, if you keep the alpha channel mask off, it'll render the background non-transparent. And if you set up a color in the background, it'll show up. Otherwise, it'll just show up black, which would actually be fine too. So if you want to put a color on there, you can choose your camera. Over here, go to Control A for Attribute Editor, and then look for
the environment settings, and then here you can change your background color to whatever you want. So nothing that distracts from the character. Something should be something that recedes in the background a bit. If you're not unsure, you can just do like a white or gray or something like that, whatever you want. But if you have the alpha channel checked off, it'll render correctly with the background color in there. So have some fun with that. When you do render out and put it into Premiere or After Effects to compress it, make sure that you go in there and reinterpret the footage to 24 frames per second before you drop it into the timeline, whether it's After Effects or whether it's Premiere. If you don't reinterpret the footage it's going to assume it's 29.97, and none of your sound will sync up properly. It's really frustrating. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go ahead and read the handout I have online under content about rendering and compressing if you are having trouble with that. But it'll definitely be apparent if you make the mistake now, and definitely make sure you're going at 24 frames per second. Otherwise, all the timing will be messed up too, which is critical for the facial expressions. So let's see here. There's the uncheck alpha box tip. A couple other resources for you guys which I mentioned which could help out. When you download the assignment, there's an expressions cheat sheet which tells you what the head, eyes, eyelids, and brows do. So you can look at that to kind of give yourself a sense of how things should go. The times here might be a little bit different than what I said in my presentation, but that's because they're just general reference points. If you realize it needs to be longer, make it longer. If you realize it needs to be shorter, make it shorter. These are just ways to kind of keep yourself in check. The other resource I want to point out to you guys under D2L and content and handouts is these Gary Fagan slides. This is from this book here called The Artist's Complete Guide to Facial Expression. It's a pretty great book. There's lots of good resources here for expression, but what I think is really strong here and really helpful, let me download this real quick. Actually, I have it over here. Actually, let me make sure it's the right one. So I'm just going to download these slides. You may not distribute these. You cannot post them anywhere. They're just for your reference only because they are not purchased by you. They are purchased by me. These slides will give you a nice helpful starter point if you're trying to figure out how to play with your expressions and what makes a good expression work. So let's see here. So I just grabbed a bunch of pages from this book, and these are such a great resource. It's one of the best parts about that book other than the actual illustrations and pictures. These illustrations themselves are kind of ugly, to be honest, but it's so much great information. So each page shows a different expression: crying open mouth, crying closed mouth, suppressed sadness. And down below, the really killer part here is it tells you exactly what creates this expression. The entire brow is lowered, especially the inner corner, which is angled down sharply. The eye reduced to a single line by compression of the orbiculus cruris oculi. The stronger the action, the straighter, the thinner the line joining the lids. So it tells you what each part of the body should be doing. This is something that doesn't happen in box set or even in mid-range 3D characters, but the wrinkles around the eyes also really, really important when trying to get a sense of what the character is feeling. So think about a smile. If you don't get the wrinkles around the corner of your eye when you smile, no one's going to believe you're smiling. We have a number of different expressions here that you can look through. Again, the drawings are kind of freaky, like the eager smile, but the descriptions here are spot on. So when you're trying to figure stuff out, read these. It'll give you a good sense of what you should be looking for. This is a great resource. My recommendation would be to go ahead and download this. Even if you don't look at it for this assignment, you will want to look at it later. So this is all from the Gary Fagan book. So there you go. Hopefully that gives you a good sense of what you should be doing. Again, the lecture for the lip sync is a separate one, which I'll send you a link to, but that should cover you completely to do the expressions for next week. Make sure well, I guess it's too late to tell yourself to give time to listen to this because we're at the end. So hopefully you got all the way there. I know it's a slog to get through it all. Hope you guys had a great Halloween, and I will see you guys next week. If you do run into issues, let me know. Other than that, good luck.